All right. Thank you, Jason, for joining me today on the Trip Outside podcast from Liquid Alaska Tours. I really love your background and thank you for your time. I'm really curious about uh, when you started. You've been in business for 12 years now. What was the intention behind starting Liquid Alaska Tours? What was the idea and how did you get started?
Yeah, the company was started obviously by the owner as just tour sales in Alaska. Saw an opportunity as tourism started to increase, and then slowly over the years, kind of developed a few tours, brewery tours, hiking tours, and then about 6 years ago, an opportunity came up to operate adventure tours in the national park. So we took advantage of the opportunity, applied to them, developed the tour, by just trial and error over the course of a month, late in the end of one season, and kind of came up with an itinerary that we thought was going to be good, and just went for it and started selling it without ever having run a single person the following spring, and had a great successful first season, and it's just snowballed from there.
Wow, that's amazing. And the demand must have been there. And I love that you started adventure tours that get people active instead of just a motorboat that takes them across. So, what are some of those adventure tours that you offer? And are they the same today as they were when you started, or have they changed over time?
Yeah, well, we have our one core product that's the Mendenhall Glacier Ice Adventure Tour. The initial appeal of that was obviously there was a big hype around the Mendenhall ice caves. Everybody wanted to see those, and there was a very stable cave system for a few years that we were able to explore. However, that's since receded and collapsed. But the adventure endures. And that's essentially we're going across a glacier-fed lake in a canoe. The whole group is participatory in that, as well as hiking up to the glacier and on the glacier as well, and then returning the same way. And that's pretty much the bread and butter of the operation. For those who are time constrained or maybe a little less active, we do have a lake-only tour where we essentially get as close to the glacier as we can, and then do some shoreline paddling just to see wildlife and kind of explore the nature of the national park.
Very cool. I saw some videos that you have on your site, and they look amazing. Being able to paddle, and then you get out of the canoe, you put on your crampons and go explore the glacier. What a cool adventure! And some of the ice cave tours that you talked about reminded me of canyoneering, but instead of being in the desert of Southwest America, you're in a glacier. Are those still available, or are those pretty much done forever? The ice cave tours.
Yeah, so I mean, the glacier is constantly changing structure.
Hmm.
I would say that on a week-to-week basis, our tour route is constantly changing. So it would be akin to, giving a hiking tour where the trail moves on you. It's essentially a frozen river. So we're always out there assessing for safety, new routes, and the best things to show people. So not only is it a new tour for our guests every day, but it's a new tour for our guides nearly every day, definitely every week, and 100% completely different month to month. So that's what makes it exciting and interesting. As far as the ice caves go, it all depends on the nature of the beast. If the right circumstances are there, the right temperature, the right movement of the glacier, a crevasse can implode. You can have some calving, all kinds of glacier structure movement that can create ice caves, can create ice tunnels, create moulins, more crevasses, blue pools, rivers. It's an entire structure. It's not a static frozen block of ice. It's definitely its own ecosystem up there.
Oh, wow. That is so cool. And that's such a good point about the guides getting a new experience every day because it keeps it fresh for them and exciting. And instead of just go to the same thing, doing the same thing every day, they get a chance to research, check the conditions. And I imagine it's more fun for them than just leading the same repetitive tour every day.
Yeah, exactly it. It's not a pre-scripted tour, like just like with any kind of wildlife tour, where the wildlife aren't on demand. You kind of have to go search for them and you follow them in their natural habitat. It's the same thing with the glacier. it's a, for lack of better terms, it's a living creature, and we're responding to it and to nature in a responsible way that gets people out there and gets them a real adventure within the scope of just a few hours.
Amazing. Speaking of wildlife, what are some of the things that you see in Juneau there, either on the tour or on a daily basis where you live?
Yeah, so on the tour, we don't promote or advocate for any specific wildlife viewing. The
Hmm.
glacier isn't the best place for that. The lake is a closed system itself, so a lot of the questions we get as well. I see whales while I'm in the kayak or the canoe. Fortunately, you will not, because they'd be significantly larger than our boats. But it's a closed lake system, so there's only going to be some salmon runs that come up there. The amount of glacier silt that's in the water, you have a visibility of maybe a few inches. So even if there were things in there, you couldn't see them.
Got it.
With Juneau in total, there's bald eagles. We have mountain goats that will sometimes be viewable. Beavers. You know, Sometimes on the way out to the glacier, we'll, in the right time of the year, we'll be able to see some black bear, but it's just kind of hit or miss. But Alaska in general, you've got
Oh yeah.
your major animals. The only thing that you're rarely seeing in Southeast Alaska is a moose. Otherwise, bears, whales, and bald eagles are abundant for sure.
Very cool. And most of the people that are coming to visit you, are they on a cruise typically, or is Juneau part of a larger Alaska trip, or what is the main visitor draw to the Juneau area?
Yeah, well, due to the remote nature of Juneau, you can only get there by boat or airplane. There's no way to
Okay.
drive in. You can bring your car there, but you'd have to put it on the Alaska Marine Highway ferry system. I would say about 95 plus of the visitors to Juneau are on cruise ship.
Hmm.
Because of the unique nature of our tour, it's more adventure focused. We do have a larger percentage of overnight or non-cruise ship visitors that go on us. So we're about 70-30 cruise ship
Okay.
passengers. But we find that, they intermingle. There's no friction and there's no real distance. All of our guests seem to be similarly like-minded and adventurous.
Yeah, I suppose if they're putting it on the map, they already have adventure in common.
Yeah, specifically, we have a lot of our overnight guests that will come to Juneau just to do our tour. That's the main
Okay,
focus of their trip.
got it. And we've been wanting to plan an Alaska trip for the last 3 years, and every single year it somehow seems to escape us, whether it's change of plans or a pandemic gets thrown in our thrown in the itinerary. But Alaska. This is a loaded question, so feel free to skip it all altogether if you want. But if I was to plan like a 1 month trip to Alaska, I want to put Juneau on the list. I definitely want to do a uh, adventure where I can canoe and hike to a glacier. But what are some other things, just mostly based on your experience, considering, okay, if I have 1 month to explore Alaska, what are some areas that you love and recommend that would help someone narrow down a list of out of the all vast options available when they're planning a visit to Alaska?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that you could even subdivide it further, because Alaska is very much divided into what you can do in the summer and what you can do in the winter. Uh,
Perfect.
and the summertime would be, for the more active. You've got your fishing. Late in the season, you've got your wildlife, which starts to come out. Specifically, if you're looking for in Southeast Alaska bears, you want to wait until the salmon runs start, which is the end of June, early July. Otherwise, the bears are less visible on a whole. If you're looking to hike mountains, you don't want to come in the spring because there's still a lot of snowpack and snow melt. So I would say all things together that probably July or August would be the most advantageous time to come before fall weather sets in. And before some of the parks start to close, because it does start snowing and the temperature starts dropping for most people significantly, even in
Yeah.
August. And then for wintertime, the big highlight would be Aurora tours, and that's a huge thing. And those are peak right now. We're talking December, January, February, when you have the most dark daylight hours, or dark
Okay.
hours during the day.
Okay, cool. Very cool. And where did those, and that's in a general area, subdivided that most visitors would plan that around?
Yeah. So the summertime, Southeast Alaska is the best time for Southeast Alaska would be, from late late middle spring to the end of the summer, around the end of
Okay.
September, October-ish. You're going to get peak daylight. You're going to have the most, as far as organized tours, you're going to have the
Hmm.
most options for that. Like I said, for hiking trails, they're generally going to be not too accessible in the wintertime, a lot of places. And then if you look further up into South Central and Central Alaska and even Northern Alaska, like Denali National Park, that's not going to open until, the beginning of the summer. And as far as wintertime tours, you'd want to get near the Arctic Circle or as close as. So a lot of the Aurora tours are going to be around Fairbanks area. Not that you
Okay.
can't view them in Anchorage area; they're definitely viewable even in Southeast Alaska. But the best chance for clear skies is going to be the farther north you go.
Okay. That's great to know. The timing is crucial in planning a trip. When do you guys run your tours? And when's the start of the season, end of the season for
Yeah,
you?
so we generally time our season around the arrival and departure of cruise ships, just because that's the majority of our visitor traffic into Juneau. And so we're looking around the beginning of May to about the middle to end of September is a normal season. So roughly 5 months.
Okay. And how many hours daylight are you having during those times? And I imagine that you could probably run more tours than an average tour provider in the US in the lower 48.
Yeah, I mean it depends. We're looking at the summer solstice. You get around 17 and a half, 18 hours maybe. With dusk and dawn included.
Okay.
But at some point, people aren't going to be wanting to
Yeah,
be out on tour at 11 p.m. unless it's a pub crawl. So
sure.
we do have some longer days available, but the tours usually wrap up before dinner time or after breakfast, just so that people can get their feeds in.
Got it. What's the town of Juneau like? Cruise ship lands, they do an adventure. What are some other cool things that they like about Juneau to look forward
Yeah,
to?
I mean, the appeal of going to the Mendenhall Glacier like we do is that it's, quote unquote, a road accessible glacier. And what that means
Hmm.
is essentially you can get in your car or get in a tour bus and you can go up to the visitor center and you can view the glacier there. So you don't require any additional air transport or any long hike or anything like that. But it is remote enough for our tour that, with the around 1.1 million people who visited Juneau in 2019. About three-quarters of them at some point would see the Mendenhall Glacier. And we only take about 2,000 people a summer. So less than 0.1% of the people that are actually arriving to Juneau are actually going to put their foot on the glacier in our method. So it's a great appeal in that way. Otherwise, Juneau, it's abundant in wildlife. It has more hiking trails per mile than it does paved roads. But it's also, it's the state capital, and it's got enough broad appeal as far as history and great museums, great restaurants, that you can round out your whole day. Do breakfast, do lunch, do dinner, do a tour, go on a whale watching boat, go fishing, just endless adventure.
Wow. Well, I'm really looking forward to it. And I hope that you're offering tours in 2021 and things open up. I imagine 2020 was a tough year for you guys. Uh, and you told me before we started that you were essentially shut down for the whole year. Uh, it's been what, 12 years since you've been operating. It's probably the most drastic year you've ever had. We hear about restaurants and places that obviously have been impacted tremendously by this pandemic, but the destinations that were, in general, outdoors did really well. But talk us through what this year was like for you, and where were you when where were you in your season when the whole thing started, and when did you decide to shut it down, or how did that happen?
Yeah, well, I guess in retrospect, we look at it as kind of a blessing in disguise insofar as we had not begun operations when coronavirus around early March started to become a real thing in the States. Um, and, we ended up deciding to make the final call on the season based around that when the cruise ships, kind of just canceled their entire shipping schedule through October, which is now through this March, I believe, for a lot of them. So just we would have loved to run, and we had a decent amount of independent guests that were arriving to Juneau, but unfortunately was not really perceived to be enough to be operationally efficient. What I mean by that is essentially getting the right people up there and getting everything in place and opening up shop. We just didn't have enough to kind of make it business worthy, unfortunately. So this year going in, we're going in with the same mentality we had, in years prior, which is full steam ahead. Starting recruiting, and just paying careful attention to the news. And then we're also prepared this year with health and safety regulations. So we've worked on those quite diligently over the summer, taken notes from what tour companies who are running have done. Made modifications to that for our own, especially since we operate on water and on hazardous surfaces, like the glacier and the rocks. So I think we're pretty well prepared for anything that the world throws at us this year. Last year was a bit of a surprise, but no surprises this year.
Well, we're hoping for the best. We really hope that things work, open up. And thank you for sharing that journey. And it's good to hear that you never got started in a way, so you didn't have to go there, set up, get staffed, and then have to undo a lot of it. So, um, what was what does the day to day look like? I'm really curious in like running an outdoor business for you. What are some challenges? How to like an average person only sees the guide and they have an amazing experience as they walk away. But I imagine there's so much that goes into running a perfectly five-star outdoor experience that you are. What does a day in a life of running Liquid Alaska tours look like? Whether it's for a guide or for you on the back end.
Yeah, the secret sauce to our success is not really focusing on outdoing any competition or thinking that we have competition, or really putting any kind of metric, like hitting certain revenue goals or hitting a certain rating. It's really just putting the customer experience first. I mean, we're a an activity. We're a leisure activity, so it's people are spending their hard-earned money to come see what we have to offer and how we can interpret nature for them, because that's really what we're doing, is that nature is providing all the oohs and ahs, and we're making that process for them to experience that safe and seamless. um, and I think that's been our success, is that every aspect of the customer experience, not just what the customer sees themselves, but everything that goes into it before and after, is critical. So um, oversupplying, making sure that we're never short on anything as far as customer needs goes for equipment sizes, the quality of equipment, the training of our guides. We do a 2-week training. All of our guides, before they come in, are wilderness first responder certified, which is an 80-hour, 10-day course. Essentially allows them to handle a large majority of any kind of medical issues that could occur. And really what that's for is not for them to be able to respond to those per se, but it's for them to recognize the scenarios that could cause those situations so that they can be even more foresighted. We do cold water rescue, we do ropes rescue. Essentially, our guides are trained to perform in standards that we would never allow our guests to even get near to being close to experiencing. And then just customer service. We borrow a lot from the hotel and hospitality industry, as far as this is an outdoor adventure, but that doesn't mean that it can't have that luxury kind of experience to it. So we like to keep all of our equipment, as new as possible, and our vehicles clean, and everything bright and polished, because there's nothing that establishes a sense of rapport and safety with a tour guide than someone who's confident, level-headed, knows what they're talking about, and is comfortable enough with their level of training that they can put you at ease instantly as well.
That's incredible. You're so humble about explaining all the hard work that you guys do to making sure that amazing experience happens. But it cannot be easy to manage the number of visitors you get and making sure that you have, and it just goes to show how amazing, why you have the amazing ratings that you do. Well, we're very excited to have you as a Trip Outside outfitter. We really hope that your 2020 comes back strong, that we can all get back to getting outdoors. And please consider adding Liquid Alaska Tours to your itinerary on your visit to Alaska. I know personally, I am pumped to take the Mendenhall Glacier Full Adventure Tour when that happens. Uh, the inspiration on your Instagram is enough for anyone to want to get out and book it today. So if you're listening and you enjoyed this, please consider checking out Liquid Alaska Tours on your trip to Alaska. Jason, thank you so much for being a guest today with Trip Outside. We're hoping that 2021 and all of the future years are super strong for you, man.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.